Like I didn't. I understand.
No, I got it right here. Thank you. That might help, right? Go straight to the thermostat. I don't take off my layers. I don't drink water. I just. I don't care about. Nah, I don't get the temperature for everybody.
I don't know the answer, you know, it's like. It's really tough. Greatest strategy. The news that, you know, with the findings and everything, it's so difficult. Well, I would in the office. Yeah.
Go to your office.
It's like, if I, they have to have like certain sites.
So.
I also forgot, almost. Yeah. I mean,
I'm not gonna do that.
yeah, right.
It used to be.
The first.
Thank you, sir.
I ever worked at. Oh, okay.
I can sit out here and
Oh.
The
Came from you, but he comes to bring.
I just said you had business shoulders. You're about your business.
Okay.
You're command. You're doing well. Good job, though. Seriously.
Thank you. I always like thinking of other agencies, you know, and then we sort of lost some of their.
Hello. Hi, everybody. I'm going to get started. It's 11:15. So thanks for joining me. I know that it's tough to follow the investigations training always. So I appreciate you staying. I really do. So I'm going to be talking about recusal today. And if you don't know what recusal is, that is okay. By the end of today, you will know what recusal is, and you will come to know it as a really useful tool, I think, in ethics. So I will go ahead and get started, but just some information about the format of this training. I'm going to ask you a question about recusal. And then I'm going to ask you for your feedback of what you think the answer is to that question. I have a Slido, so you're going to use your cell phone to give me some feedback. And then after you give feedback, I will give you the official BEGA OGE answer to the question. And then at the end, we have a few hypotheticals that have to do with recusal. And I don't think I have those in Slido. We can just talk about those. So let's get started. All right. Thank you. All right, so what is recusal? So is there anybody, like one person maybe? Anybody that knows what recusal is? No? Nobody? Some people know? Okay. If you know,
She put her hand up.
we're gonna do it on Slido, and we can, if people want to verbally say it. But it took a lot for me. I had to get the Slido account. I had to get my boss to pay for it. We about to use this right here.
I know that's.
We try to.
So you take your cell phone out and you go into your camera. And then you hover your camera over that barcode in the corner over there, and then a link will pop up and you click on the link. I got my first answer, removal. All right. Well, that's the code. So refraining from participation. All right, that's a really good one.
Oh, I'm taking a picture. So,
Yeah. It's hovered over there. Okay. No, you can just put the code. You can put the code in without the hashtag.
Okay.
Yep. If you just went to slido.com in your browser, you can put 3293264 in. All right, I'm getting some good answers. Removing yourself from a situation due to conflicts of interest, resigning oneself from the process, voluntarily opting out, exonerate, removing, not participating or influencing, excusing yourself, stepping back from a decision-making role, removing yourself from an activity, removal, refraining from participation. All right. Got some really good responses here. And yeah, just about all of you are right, except for the person that put 3293.
That's her password.
Yes, so you guys know what recusal is. So it's a tool to remedy potential conflicts, right? So say you're just doing your district government job one day, you're humming along, and you get a document that you're supposed to review and approve or something, and that document has to do with your spouse's business. And you're like, whoa, for some people, they'll just breeze right by it and we just our agency just has not had enough contact with them yet because it just doesn't feel weird. But if it feels weird, that's because you're now faced with a potential conflict. So if you do take some action with regard to that document, you have a conflict of interest, right? So it's a tool that you use when you're faced with the conflict. All right, it's a written statement. All right, so just know that you have not recused yourself from something at work unless you have submitted a written statement. Very important to know. Just going and telling your supervisor is not enough. All right, so in your written statement, you're going to describe the nature of your conflict. And you're going to state next steps. You're going to say, because this document has to do with my spouse's my spouse's business, and me taking action with regard to that would be a conflict of interest for me. Because of that, I'm not going to take any action. All right. And then for your recusal to be valid, you have to also then follow what you said in your recusal, right? Not take any action. Because if you're just gonna write it and give it to your supervisor, and then you go in and approve the document, then what was the point, right? We're still back at a conflict. All right. When do you write a recusal? Like under what circumstances? When do you have to submit a written recusal? Go ahead and tell me. And the barcode, or you can go into your web browser and do slido.com too and put that code in. All right. Conflict, when you have a conflict of interest, immediately when you're presented with a conflict, when you have personal interests or relations, if you're personally affiliated. Y'all was lying. Y'all know what recusal is. Y'all know all about the ethics rules. Getting all of these right. All right. When there's a relationship, when I might benefit, when there's a conflict of interest or an apparent conflict of interest. I like that. That's a thorough answer. All right. In a potentially biasing situation, when it's likely that you'll be asked to make a decision affecting your financial, okay, our little box is blocking that one, but financial interests maybe. All right. Public perception, showing favor. These are really good. When legal counsel advises you to, hey, that's always a good one too. That's a safe bet. All right, these are all really good. All right. So let me go to our official answer. It's going to be at the intersection of personal and professional, right? So in my previous example, your spouse's business came up at work. Whenever personal stuff intersects with work, that should be a red flag for you, right? So some common red flags, family members, when we said our spouses, I don't know what we're gonna call it, grant application or whatever came up in front of you at work, that should be a red flag. Anything having to do with your family members that comes before you at work, you should say, whoa, it should give you pause. Next one, outside business partners. If you have some sort of outside business, a second job, anything like that, anything having to do with them come before you, should give. So if you work for the district government and you have some sort of outside business and that business wants to apply for grants or wants to contract with the district, the outside business can do that. You're gonna want to get your business partner or your attorney to do those kinds of things, but you can't do that, all right? So anything having to do with outside business partners. And then anybody that you're seeking employment with. I think those first two might be fairly obvious for you if you are a little bit familiar with the ethics rules, but keep in mind, anybody that you're seeking outside employment with, then they're considered closely affiliated with you, right? Because you're seeking something from them, you want something from them. So once you start seeking that employment, you can't take any action regarding that outside company that you're seeking employment with, right? So that's when recusal will come up. You will go tell your supervisor and tell BEGA, hey, I have a job application in with these people, so I can't approve their such and such anymore. And I know that it sucks that you have to go and show your hand to your supervisor that you're applying to jobs. But you do, right? Because if you don't, then you'll really probably be on your way out the door because you got a conflict of interest. All right, so if you don't recuse yourself, sorry, I got a question.
What about past employers?
What about past employers? So, for past employers, we have some other rules that you should be screened off initially with regard to past employers if you have any ongoing financial benefit with them, then the agency should screen you away from working on anything having to do with them. The other rule that is implicated by past employers, I think, could potentially be preferential treatment. That you are making things easier for them or doing things for them at work because you used to work for them. And in those instances, if you don't think that you can be impartial and do your work the same as you would always, you can then use recusal as a tool. So recusal is a really good tool. Anytime you think that you're in ethics land and you might be in trouble or something gives you pause, you're like, whoa, I'm not gonna work on this, I'm gonna write. And email works for recusal, by the way. We have some templates up on our website about what a recusal letter looks like, but an email works just fine. As long as you describe the thing and say you're not gonna take any action, an email works just fine. It can remedy any potential ethics issue.
I was looking at the word extortion, and under that, becomes bribery, threats, strong arming, all of those kind of things, particularly with government officials, politicians, things of that nature. When you got outside forces that want things, like property, we have interest in real estate, things of that nature, and they try to, bribe, strong arm, threaten politicians, things of that nature. How does that fit into this?
So, good question. He said in terms of things like bribery and threatening government officials and things of that nature. And I'm assuming this is like a contractor or developer or somebody wants something from the district.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with regards to recusal, the way it could be helpful, right, is, you're a government worker, you have some sort of say or sway in this decision, and the contractor comes to you and they say, hey, please make this happen for me. It's $25,000 and it's free, right? So,
I'm talking about money. When you're not taking any money, but it's the threat of your life.
oh, well, we're talking about crimes now. You gotta call the police. You gotta call the popo. You gotta call the popo for that.
Situations like
Yeah, recusal not gonna do it. Call the police. But in terms of bribery, if you're offered a bribe, recusal could be helpful as well. You can go to your supervisor and say, hey, they offer me this money. I need to recuse myself. And it's really important to do it in that circumstance because at that point that the offer has been made, there's going to be a question of from that point on, can you do your job impartially, right? Because then you can get all the way to the end, you do your job and say, I was going to do it anyway, right? But you were offered the $25,000, so who knows how much of a motivating factor that was. So this is a really good tool, recusal is, in those instances, so you are not involved. So tell me, question, sorry.
I want to ask a question, kind of like a follow-up to the young lady about an ex-employee. Now, if you have a negative view of that employee and they are denied, like for a contract or whatever, could that ex-employee come back and say they were denied because you were an ex-employee? Could they use that?
We have an ex-employee who is bidding for a contract.
Right, you said, because the answer was in a positive way, like you would give a positive response, like they would be awarded.
You mean, you're saying like you're a district government employee and you treat someone poorly, I guess, because you didn't.
They're denied the contract. But they come back and say the reason that they were denied is because the individual was a prior employee and didn't like them or.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
yeah, they could. There's like, well, separate from the ethics rules, there's like bid protests and all of that stuff. In contracts, people raise issue with contracts saying they weren't done fairly and all of that stuff. So people, a person could do that. With recusal, that's something that you want to do upfront, right, before you take any action. So if you know you hate this past employee,
But yeah, but
that's coming up for a contract and be like, I hate her so bad, I know I'm not gonna score her well, so you might as well have somebody else do it. Good. It depends. All right, so what happens if you don't recuse yourself when you should have?
Yeah, that's really the question.
Have you saw your spouse's grant application? You reviewed it? You have a checklist. It's not like you are doing anything other than your job. You just reviewed it. You used the checklist. You pass it through for further consideration in the process. Bye. I like that. That's succinct. You have committed an ethics violation. Might lose your job. Disciplinary actions. Yep, could result in disciplinary action, loss of credibility. Yeah. Ethics review. Termination. Yep. You set yourself up for ethics violation. Yeah, that's the thing, because we say you can recuse yourself, so you definitely set yourself up. Financial consequences. Yep. Legal challenges. Could be. Investigation. Yeah. Yep. No letters of recommendation. Mhm. All right, let's see. So if you don't recuse, just be mindful that failure to recuse, that's a violation. Remember what I said, it has to be a written statement, all right? You have to do it. Like in terms of like nepotism or something like that, your sister comes to work at the agency, technically in your chain of command, but you don't tell her to do anything because that's your sister. So you're like, you know, you're my sister, I can't tell you what to do at work. But you have not told your supervisor that your sister is in your chain of command, you haven't written the recusal, we're still in nepotism land, okay? So that's still a violation. Be mindful of that. All right. And so if you don't recuse, a potential conflict, something that you know it was there, but you hadn't taken any action. So, it might not have been a big deal. Now it's a big deal. It's an actual conflict that you engaged in because there's no recusal. So your recusal is like your safeguard against any more ethical blowback, right? So if we come in, somebody was reported a situation, say it's a situation where your sister's in your chain of command. If we come in and we're like, hey, we heard that your sister works at the agency, what's going on? What you're gonna do is you're gonna pull out that email that you sent to your supervisor. Hopefully we already have a copy, but if we don't, you're gonna pull it out. You're gonna say, hey, I recuse myself and I haven't taken any action with regard to my sister. I asked that she be removed from my chain of command and I'm not her supervisor. I have no influence over any personnel matters as it pertains to her. And we're basically in two separate lanes here. Here's my written proof. Then we're gonna say, oh, our bad, we're gonna go away because you did what you were supposed to do. But if you don't have that written recusal, we have to continue to go forward and gather more information in our investigation. All right. Other potential violations, because recusal is just a really good tool. It covers you. If you write that you don't want to be involved because you have potential conflict and then back away from something, you're good. You've taken no action. But if you don't, potential other, violations, we talk about conflicts of interest a lot, but there is a potential to violate a lot of different rules. So I encourage you to recuse yourself whenever possible. I over recuse myself. How many times I recuse myself? Actually, like 4 times. Yeah. I don't play. Anybody, I had a friend who applied to work here and she would have been my direct report, my subordinate. I would have been supervising her. She's a friend. There's no real rule against it. I probably could have supervised her in an impartial way and treated her like everybody else. I don't want to have anything to do with her hire, right? So I recuse myself from it. I don't have anything to do with it, just in case. I worked here for like 8 years, so I've seen people get caught up. So just in case.
You say you should submit the recusal to your immediate supervisor?
Yep. And so this is gonna come up later in presentation. Your immediate supervisor and us. So you just copy us on it. So we have a copy. And we have a little folder on our shared drive, a little database. We create a little special folder with just your name on it, put your recusal in there. You know, so that we usually, if somebody reports you and we're investigating a matter that has to do with like nepotism, conflicts of interest and stuff like that, we can go check that database, see if you had a recusal on file. If you did, that's good. We're still gonna come talk to you because we wanna make sure that you didn't take any action after you submitted your recusal. So it's really good to have it on file. Then the next step is to just make sure that you didn't do anything. And if you didn't, we'll go away.
This is my last question, I promise.
Just one.
A supervisor shouldn't hire someone they know?
No, I didn't say that. I think I've worked here, I'm paranoid, and I'd be recusing myself just in case. No, but you can hire someone that you know. I just didn't want to be involved in my friend's hire, like to be on her panel and interview her and all that stuff. Well, the thing of it is I think I can be impartial, but you just never know. I like her. She's dope and she's really smart. So I might just give her tens across the board. Who knows? I don't know. So I didn't want to be involved.
Okay.
But if she had been hired, she would have been my direct report. There's nothing wrong with that. She's not my relative. Yeah. But if somebody wanted to report me, right, for giving her preferential treatment, they could do that. Other consequence of not recusing, BEGA fines, a hearing, or other public disposition. So, you know, we're an administrative agency. The only thing we can do is essentially impose civil fines and shame you, but that's actually a lot. And when you think about career trajectory and stuff like that, somebody Googles your name and this is coming up at the top of the search that you have negotiated this position. It's not great, right? So yeah. All right, so what kinds of stuff should go in the recusal? What do we think? Like when you're writing it. The reason for the recusal, right? Explanation of the conflict, the potential conflicts. Yep. Explanation, nature of the recusal, names, true statements. That's really important. Please let it be true statements because wow, not you're writing a recusal and then it's false. That's crazy. What activities you will not participate in? Yes. Request for guidance if needed. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Reason for recusal. I think I did that one already. Yep. I got 3 people who signed this way. Documentation. Yes, if necessary, definitely attach documentation. All right. I think you guys are all correct. All right, here's the official answer from us. Must be in writing. A full disclosure of the interests. If it's your outside business, give us specifics. What's the outside business? How you're involved, right? Like, are you a partner or something like that? And if so, you own a quarter of the business, all of that stuff. Give us the specifics so that we can understand the nature of the conflict. All right, an explicit statement of recusal. I understand that because I'm posed with a conflict of interest, I can take no action in this matter in my official capacity as a district government employee. I'm therefore recusing myself from this matter and will take no action regarding this matter. We have a template up on the website. You can use the template exactly and just plug in your information, or you can make it what you need to make it as long as you have the nuts and bolts, whatever you want to do, you can. And then important, a request to your supervisors for a plan moving forward. So in the case of nepotism, right, your sister is in your chain of command, we need her removed, right? From your chain of command. So asking supervisors, what are we gonna do going forward such that it is no longer my responsibility to make personnel decisions regarding my sister? Because you can write the recusal, but then every time you guys are bumping up, oh, I can't approve your overtime. I can't, every time, and she needs her overtime approved, right? So we need to figure out what we're gonna do to remove her from you, get her over to somebody else, so that we're not running into this issue all the time. Yeah, that's it for that one. Okay, who do I give it to? We talked about this, so this one should be easy. I'll go right to the slide. Who should it be shared with? I appreciate your level of engagement. It's close to lunch, about a boring topic. Appreciate you so much. Supervisor and BEGA. Direct supervisor. Meeting supervisor and BEGA. Yeah, pretty much. We talked about this one, so I won't belabor this one. These are all correct. All right. Agency head, HR. Yes, if you can do agency head and HR, but depending on the size of your agency, is the agency head gonna care? Who this person? I don't know her. But yeah, you could, but also put your supervisor and BEGA on there as well. Ethics counselor, yes, for sure you can loop in your ethics counselor. Here's the official answer. I liked ethics counselor. Always good to have your ethics counselor in on stuff and have them know what is going on. But definitely you want to tell your direct supervisors, that's going to be the person who's in the best position to help you with next steps going forward if something needs to happen after you recuse. And then us. It's for informational purposes. Like I said, we just read it and store it away in your folder. And then if we ever need to come talk to you again, we're gonna go pull it, read it again, and then come talk to you.
Will the slide that be available for?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so for all of these in-person sessions, yesterday and today, the slides will be available, at the end of Ethics Week, no more than a week after Ethics Week. So it'll be the YouTube link to the recording of each session and then the actual slide deck. And it just depends on how much I harass our IT guy. We'll see. All right, so what happens after you recuse yourself? What's next? What happens? You see the dots at the top? I'm just waiting to see what y'all are gonna say. I'm on the edge of my seat. You are out of the loop. You're removed from the situation. BEGA will add your info, yes, to the folder. I think that person got cut off. Do not act on the situation. Relax and stay focused. I like that. Yep. Supervisor writing removed, yes. Right. Stay out of the matter. Stay out of it. Yes. Your job is done. Yes. Right. That's right. You just mind your business. That's all you do. All right. So yes, take no action. Again, this is important. So you did really well. You recognize the conflict. You wrote your recusal. You sent it to your supervisor and to BEGA. You do not want to fumble the ball Now, why am I doing the sports analogy? And I don't know nothing about sports, but whatever the final part of the game is, that's when you don't want to fumble. So at the end, all you gotta do is nothing. So just do nothing, right? Don't take any action. Receive a plan from your supervisor. You ask in your recusal letter, hey, what's gonna be the plan going forward? Make sure that they tell you that so that you are doing your job, but not engaging in conflict, right? Because technically, the thing you're recusing from is one of your job responsibilities. So what is the plan? If it's a relative, are they going to swap teams, right? Another supervisor takes someone and you take somebody. What are we going to do? Save a copy of the recusal for your records. Save it. All right. Yep. Okay. Here is our first hypothetical. I think there are 3 of these, if I'm not mistaken. Now, I don't know if you a fan of Bridgerton. Not yet. So all of these are like Bridgerton names because I'm that crazy. Just wanted to let you know. And I have no shame in my game. All right. Anthony's wife, Kate, owns Bee Bumble Honey Incorporated, a local business in the district. Anthony manages grants and programs specifically geared toward local and small businesses in the district. Kate has applied for a grant through Anthony's office. What should Anthony do? And we're just going to talk about these. I don't have a slide up. Your thoughts? He should recuse himself. Yo, I think that, let me see. Well, let me see what the first thing is. Recuse yourself, right? So when we talk about when, as soon as you become aware that you have a potential conflict of interest, that's when you're right to recusal. Don't wait. Don't wait for anything. You can go right on our website, get the template. You don't need to be advised by your general counsel, anybody. Just write your recusal. While you're doing it, you can, if you want to loop in the ethics counselor or something like that, you can, or the general counsel, but don't wait. As soon as you know. Anything else you think you should do?
Well, you should put it in writing.
You should put it in writing. I agree. Is that the next thing? Oh, we'll take no action. But yeah, the recusal, the first part, that's in writing. Whenever we say we're recusing ourselves, we did it in writing. We did an email, a letter, or whatever. But yeah, the next thing he should do is take no action. Very important. 2 parts, recuse yourself in writing. Second part, do nothing. Now, some of us are just busy, so we're not comfortable with doing nothing, but do nothing. Just get the plan from your supervisor and don't have anything else to do with it. All right, next, he should figure out how his wife's grant application can be removed from his responsibility, right? Don't forget that part. We asked our supervisor in a letter, how are we going to get this done? Because you don't want it to seem like you're not doing your job, but you also can't engage in this conflict of interest. Okay, I think that's the last under what he should do. What should Anthony not do?
Keep it to himself.
He shouldn't just talk about it, right? Because we have to write the recusal. So a lot of times in investigations, we see that there was a conflict of interest or some violation of the code of conduct. And we always ask, they'll say to us, we interviewed a respondent, hey, we've heard that this has happened, there's this allegation, right? And they'll say, oh no, I didn't take any action. I talked to my supervisor about that a year ago. And we're like, oh, well, you, where's the email or the letter? There's no written recusal, right? So it's good to talk to your supervisor. Like we like to think we have like a collegial atmosphere around here. We're like yelling across the hall, talking to each other. It's good to talk, but you have to put it in writing as well. So after you have that conversation with your supervisor, you can send them an email. Hey, to follow up on our conversation, this is my potential conflict and I won't be doing anything. Let me know how we should move going forward. And then the other thing he shouldn't do is write the recusal, but review the grant application anyway. That would be bad. Question?
should also not talk to his wife about other grants.
Definitely not. Definitely not. He should not. She said he should not talk to his wife about other grants. Yeah, because recusal, I don't even know if it, because you violating some other rules. So I don't know if recusal could help in that instance if you're giving your wife the drop on other grants. I think that's it for this one. Yep. All right, here's the next one. My brother and I. Agatha's brother Marcus has applied for a position with her agency. As a member of the hiring panel for the position, Agatha must review the resumes of all eligible candidates. While reviewing resumes, Agatha comes across Marcus's resume. What should she do?
Use herself.
There you go. I mean, this is, I'm just trying to pound it into your head. Recuse that. I mean, this is repetitive. Honestly, I just want to do the Bridgerton. All right, recuse yourself. Then take no action regarding the hiring process. And just a quick note on nepotism. Nepotism is really, really bad. And the reason that it's bad is because if you engage in nepotism, you face disciplinary action all the way up to termination. But in addition to that, you face fines from our agency. But in addition to that, you must pay restitution of all of the salary earned by your relative, okay? So it's the fines from our agency, $5,000 per violation. And mind you, depending on the course of action, could be multiple $5,000 fines. You hired them, right? Then you approved overtime. Then you signed off on a transfer or something like that, right? Because you just been supervising them. You've been supervising them for a year, right? They made $70,000. We find out at the year mark, you owe us, if you did all three of those things, that's $85,000, I think. Okay? So that's why nepotism is really bad. 1 second. Yes, ma'am.
What about when you, does this also apply to like close friends?
So, no, in some circumstances, if you're giving your close friends preferential treatment, that is a violation, but just having close friends that work in the agency, no, not necessarily, but just know, because that's your close friend, I'm going to lunch. Your colleagues and subordinates are going to tell you, they're going to contact our agency. We have many, many cases like that. Oh, she only likes this one particular person. They know each other outside of work. They're going to report you. So we do have to look into it to make sure that there was no preferential treatment. And a lot of times we don't, we don't really find preferential treatment, but sometimes we do. But there is no like inherent ethics violation in working with your friends.
In this scenario or one similar, the friend or something, would Agatha be recusing just from reviewing her brother's application, or does she step down from the panel altogether?
So she just wants to stay away from any part of it that would have to do with her brother. So she probably really couldn't participate in interviews, right? Because it would make no sense to have her participating on interviews except for his. So I would say she would probably just not be involved in this hiring process.
Okay.
Because, as far as like, I don't think we do scoring anymore, but however we do it, everybody on the panel needs to be at each of this, in part of each step of the hiring process. All right, we talked about this again, repetitive, figure out who's going to take her place on the panel. Because we don't want Agatha just not show up to work that day. She's like, oh, heck no, I'm not interviewing my brother, and just not show up. We want to loop in our supervisor, write our recusal, and then figure out who is going to take place. All right, what you should not do, same as before, don't talk about it and not write it. Don't write it and then do it. Okay? I think this is the last one. It's my favorite, Penelope and Holly. Okay, Penelope, who conducts alcohol control inspections in Ward 4, is in the process of applying for a job with Colin, who owns a restaurant group. Colin owns several restaurants and bars in Ward 4 where Penelope is assigned.
Recuse.
Immediately.
I mean, when I was writing, I was like, there's really no other answer. Avoid inspecting Colin's properties, right? All of them. So the thing here is, it seems like if Colin might have multiple restaurants in Ward 4, so here's the thing with this one. Penelope can recuse herself, but what if her supervisor says, you're Ward 4? I can't take you off Ward 4. How can we do that? And swap a ward with somebody? That's not fair to the other employees. These assignments are permanent. So then what? Any thoughts?
Then she would have to tell me she's applying for another job.
There you go. She said then she would have to tell them she's applying for another job. She might need to leave the job with Colin alone, right?
Wow. Yeah.
So in some instances, not pursuing certain opportunities or divesting from certain things might be the way to go. Or she might say, the thing with Colin is going to be more lucrative. I'm going to resign from my district government job. But you cannot recuse so much that you become ineffective in your district government job. If you're recusing like all your responsibilities, you can't do that. You're not serving your purpose, the purpose that you were hired for. All right, same stuff. Right? Don't talk about it and I write it. Don't write it and then do it anyway. All right. Thank you. Any questions for me about recusal or anything else?
I do.
Uh-huh.
One scenario, say, you transition from a crew member to a supervisor.
Mhm,
And it comes time for evaluation.
mhm.
Can I recuse myself? Is that fair to evaluate? Oh, I can honestly give them a accurate evaluation, but the other one's like, oh, she only gave them evaluation because they close like that. They
Mhm.
like that. How do I?
So,
They can't do that.
right, so she said you go from being a crew member, and I'm assuming that's kind of like a rank and file employee that doesn't have supervisory duties, but then you go to being a supervisor.
Right.
All right, and when you were a rank and file employee, you had a clique, you had homies that you were hanging out with. And now as a supervisor, you supervise your homies and it is evaluation time. So you have a mix of friends that are your subordinates and then you have your other subordinates that you work with. And the ones you work with have a concern because you have this close-knit friendship, have a concern about your impartiality as it pertains to evaluating your friends that are your subordinates. I don't think recusal is going to work here because evaluations are a huge part of what we do as supervisors. I think what I would do is I think you should reach out to your ethics counselor or to us and, just an email describing what's going on. And then we can kind of take a look at what's going on. If we need more facts or information from you, we'll ask you. But you would probably want to get confirmation from us that we don't think that, it's a preferential treatment issue. But also be mindful that like if your homies get tips across the board and everybody is being more critically evaluated and somebody reports it, that is something that we have to look at, right? That's kind of how we determine preferential treatment, that because they're your friends, they're really great, while everybody else is like just okay and has a bunch of stuff to improve on. That's problematic. But at the outset, we take a look at it, just you doing the evaluations, I don't think it's an ethics violation. I think you would be fine to do the evaluations, and I think it would be just too difficult for your supervisor to offload that responsibility from you.
Documentation.
And documentation, my boss said that.
Use documentation to support all of your evaluations that you conduct. So emails, whatever type of performance, any type of corrective action or anything that you've taken the entire year, just use that documentation in all of your evaluations. So that no one can say that, hey, she gave this person a 10, she gave me a 9. No, I have the documentation to back it up for everybody.
Okay. Thank you.
Any more questions? Yes.
What if you have, like a past employer or maybe you're on the board of something or you're connected with an organization and there's not a financial exchange?
So her question was, what if you're affiliated with some sort of outside organization, but you don't have any financial interest? Is
And
that,
they apply for.
and they apply for something at your job or something like that? I would say that depends. So I think it depends on if you're some sort of fiduciary, right? Like you are the president, you're the chair, you're the treasurer or something like that. Because even though you are not being paid to do so, you might be motivated to put their interests ahead of other people who are applying for the same type of stuff, right? If you're just a member of something like professional organization, a nonprofit or something like that, I wouldn't be as concerned. But what I will say is to be mindful that in the ethics rules, we have rule, and I think it's DPM 1800.3N as in Nancy, if I'm not mistaken. And it basically says that the appearance of a ethics violation is itself a violation. So people can report you and say, hey, you know, this lady, she's on the board of this nonprofit and they're always getting grants from her agency. And that's a conflict of interest. Now we go and look and we'll say, no, it's not a conflict because she didn't take any action at work that was going to have a direct and predictable impact on her financial interests or the financial interests of the nonprofit. But it looks really bad, right? It undermines the public's trust that she's always approving these grants for this organization for which that she's on the board with. And so there's an appearance issue there. Now, as far as what we do with appearance, a strictly appearance case, like if we did an investigation, I don't want to say this because I don't want people to just be appearing to be unethical, but we don't really do that much with it. It's kind of usually like a supplement to other charges in a case. With just appearance, we'd probably do something called an informal admonition and write you a letter and say, hey, you're violating the appearance rule and we want you to get some ethics training. We might also make other suggestions about what you do to like not appear to be unethical. But I don't really think, we've never really done a negotiated disposition with just appearance.
Yeah, no indeeds with just appearance, but just for her conflict of interest, even if it's in a volunteer role, I think we have found that a board, I think the rule says that a board or officer within in a 501c3 or other organization would be considered a person, closely affiliated person.
Yep.
And so if they're just a plain volunteer, like they don't have any direction in the organization, then that wouldn't be, a conflict of interest because they're not paid. But if they take on a leadership role, that's when it moves into a close.
Yep, that's one of our BEGA attorneys. And he said that if you're in a leadership role, even if you don't get paid, it can still pose a conflict of interest. You have a question? Questions about recusal? No? Well, I hope that was sufficiently repetitive. So that you know what to do and when to do it. If you have questions or you think of something later, reach out to us. So what's really cool is that we're an internal agency, so all we do is serve you guys all day. So we're literally paid to answer your questions. So please utilize us. Email us, bega@dc.gov. I have access to that. I usually check it every morning. And I might farm the question out to one of the other attorneys, but an attorney is going to answer your question. Only attorneys give ethics advice. It's considered legal advice. So utilize that. Contact us and reach out before you do something because, Supervisory Investigator Cook was up here, he mentioned it. And one of his examples, he didn't go all the way and tell you guys the tea, but he essentially said sometimes when people reach out to us, they tell us a set of facts, but they don't tell us whether or not it has happened already or it's going to happen. So with regard to our advice, we can only help you with things that have not happened yet. So if we find out that we gave you the advice, but you'd already done it, it's not going to be safe harbor free. So just be mindful of that. If you self-report something that you did, hey, I violated the ethics rules, I'm so sorry. We actually like that. Not that you violated the ethics rules, but that you're self-reporting. You recognize at least at some point that it was wrong. And sometimes it's like people even try to remedy it. They'll say like accepting a gift, like I accepted this bottle of liquor. I'm so sorry, I shouldn't have done that. I didn't open it. I returned it. And we're like, cool. That's perfect. Get some, not perfect, but we're cool. Get some ethics training, refresh yourself. You're good to go. We won't bother you. So if things have already happened, just come and talk to us about it. If we find out on our own, of course, you don't get that good favor from us because we found out on our own.
With the holidays, some offices receive fruits and flowers and vegetables.
Yeah.
How do we use process that? What do we do with those
Mhm.
items?
She said for the holidays, offices receive like fruit, flowers, things like that, perishable items. So generally you can't accept those as considered gifts, right? And they're prohibited, most cannot generally. They are most likely going to be over $10. It's a $10 cap. And I don't know if you're gonna find, well, you might find some roses at the grocery store for $9.99, I don't know. But generally, you can't accept them. However, we do have an exception in the gifts rule that says for perishable items, you can consume the item one time per giver. So, however, we don't want you to do that in the context of like, you know, you're gonna receive like 20 edible arrangements at the agency. You'll be like, bet we're gonna have fruit for the next month. That's great. We don't want you to do that. So, but we don't want you to waste perishable stuff, right? But you can consume one per giver, but you have to notify the giver that you can't accept it going forward, that you only accepted this time because it was perishable, you didn't want to waste, whatever. You also have the option of just throwing it away out of an abundance of caution. You can do that. But generally, just note, generally you can't accept it. If it's something other than perishable item like coupons or something like that, or iPads, something crazy like that, you must return it. It's not perishable. There's no reason for us to be keeping one iPad per giver. So those have to go back.
So we had a case where a bouquet of flowers were delivered and it was delivered by a deliverer, not
Right.
the agency.
Mm-hmm.
We says it.
Yeah.
Today, and it really depends on what steps away.
Yeah, so unless you like reject it at that time, it's in the office. You can display it at the front of the office and leave it at that. Important thing about that exception of consuming or keeping something perishable, it has to be shared amongst the office. It can't be like one person taking it. When I first started here, we literally had like a case where somebody delivered chocolates and like one greedy old employee just took the chocolates in her office. You're like, maybe I share chocolates. So because she didn't share, it didn't really squarely fall within that exception, right? She basically just accepted a gift. So just be mindful of that. Share with everybody, put it in the break room or whatever. But also email, call, whatever, whoever the sender was, hey, just so you know, don't send any more. We can't accept them. Thank you.
Should I notify if I have a business in my name or started a business, not working, but if I'm a DC resident, DC employee and have a business, is that to be reported?
She said you should report if she has a business, outside business. All right, do you file a financial disclosure statement? You should report it on it. Yeah, your outside business is valued at $1,000 or you made $200 or more in the previous calendar year.
No, I mean, it's brand new. That's why
If
I'm
it's
asking.
brand new, you haven't made any money, you don't have to report it yet. But once you start generating that revenue, you need to report on your financial disclosure. You should also check with your ethics counselor, who oftentimes your ethics counselor is the general counsel. And if it's not the general counsel, they can tell you who is the ethics counselor. So you can contact general counsel to see about the agency's policies, because sometimes the agency has more strict policies as it pertains to outside businesses activity. Anything else? All right, well, I'll wrap up a little bit early. I was supposed to go to 12:15. I don't have anything else to talk about. So we have one more in-person session today, and that's Ask BEGA. And so at Ask BEGA, we sent out a Survey Monkey when we were like begging you guys to come. And ask you to submit an anonymous question. So this is going to be some BEGA attorneys up here answering those anonymous questions, and they'll answer any other questions you might have. Then after that, we break for lunch. And in the late afternoon at 3 p.m., we're doing Being Ethical is Harder Than You Think with Michael Brett Hood. That is virtual. So when we break for lunch here after Ask BEGA, you can go to your office, home, whatever, and join us virtually for Being Ethical is Harder Than You Think. Other quick thing to note here is there was a little bit of miscommunication between myself and Michael Brett Hood. So basically, he changed the name of his presentation, like after we had already printed a bunch of stuff that says Being Ethical is Harder Than You Think. So just know that when you log on, his little slide might say something different, but you're in the right place at 3 p.m. All right, as long as you use that WebEx link. That's it for me. We're going to take a 16, 17-minute break, and then we're gonna have BEGA attorneys up here doing Ask BEGA.
A sign-in sheet for this session.
Yeah, it should be up here. The sign-in sheet, there's a sign-in sheet for each session, so make sure you sign each one. There's one that's up here now. And
Don't leave and go home. I would hate to see you all on our case.
you can harass people enough for the day, Ron. Thank you all.
I know she was gonna say something. Okay, come here. Get your name.
I actually gotta go back to daycare.